from Millward May & Co, and I'm going to take you through how to issue shares in your limited company as a director. So we actually have a tutorial on this on our website. So if you go to millwardmay.co.uk, go to Client Tutorials, and then scroll down and go to Company Management. And here we have a tutorial on how to issue new shares to shareholders. So the first thing to consider when you're issuing new shares is to make sure you've thought about the capital gains tax complications. I would suggest speaking to your accountant on this, but let's assume that you've considered that and that's all fine. The next thing to do is to make sure that you meet these following 4 criteria, because this means that you can kind of quite simply issue new shares with no other implications. So if your company was incorporated after 2006, then you should be fine. If you've got no restriction in your original Articles of Association, which restricts directors to allot shares, then you should be fine. If there's only one class of shares following the allotment, so if you've only got kind of one type of share, then you should be okay. And then if your new shares will have the same rights as the previous ones, then everything should be very straightforward and simple. So let's assume that you meet those criteria. The next steps would be to firstly hold a board meeting and state that the board has resolved to allot those shares. This can be very straightforward, if there's only 2 directors or 1 director, that's going to be very simple. But you just need to make sure you document it and keep those records for 10 years. The second step is to issue share certificates to the new shareholders. We actually have a template here, so if you click here, it will download the Word document for you to issue those. Thirdly, you need to complete the Companies House SH01 form, which is something I'm going to go into more detail here with you today. And you actually need to file that within 1 month of issuing the shares. And then finally, you need to amend your company's register of members, which you or your accountant might maintain. So let's move on to the SH01 form, because that's the big document that you need to submit, and it's not always that intuitive. So what I would suggest is actually doing this through web filing if you can. You can log into your web filing and then click Return of Allotment of Shares SH01 form, and you'll be able to have this form electronically, so then you can submit it electronically. You can still submit it via paper version, but it's just easier if you can do it electronically now. So let's move on. So the SH01 form, so section 1 requires you to put in your company number and your company name. Now you should have these details. If you do not have these details, it's worth going to beta.companieshouse.gov.uk at the top here, beta.companieshouse.gov.uk, searching for your company. So I'm going to search for our company, selecting the company, and as you can see, the company number is at the top here. So 1006 139, so you put that in here. And your company name. It's important that you put the company name in exactly how it is stated. Okay, so section 1's fairly straightforward. Section 2, these are the allotment dates or the issue dates of the shares. So you may have a number of different dates. You may have issued a number of shares over a number of different dates, or you may have just issued the shares on the same date. Now we're going to assume in this case that you've just issued shares on today. So we're going to put the from date as the 7th of 10th, 2019. And we're not going to put to date because we're only issuing shares on this one date. So section 3. Now this details the number of shares you have issued or allotted. So you need to put in here the currency, and in almost all cases this will be sterling unless you've got something complicated going on. And then you also need to enter your class of shares. Now you can find your class of shares, so presumably your class of shares will be the same class of shares as those originally issued, and you'll find this from your incorporation document. So if you go onto Companies House, and you go to filing history, you'll see a list of documents, and at the bottom there will be an incorporation document. So if we scroll down, here's the incorporation document. If we click on the incorporation document, it should come up with a statement of capital. So this is just an example. And this is your original share capital that was issued at the time when you incorporated the company. So you've got class of shares here as ordinary. So we know we're going to be issuing ordinary shares. Ordinary. And the number of shares allotted. Now this is how many shares you want to issue. Let's say, for example, you incorporated this company as having 1 share, and actually you really wanted to issue 100 shares because you want to distribute the percentages in a different proportion to just having someone own 100%. What you need to do is you need to issue 99 shares. So we're going to issue 99. And then the nominal value of each share, so that will correlate with what was originally issued. So here we had a nominal value, an aggregate nominal value of £1, and there was one share. So £1 would be, so 1 share is equal to £1. So with each share, so each share is £1. And then the amount paid on each share. So here you can see that we've got, we've had none unpaid. So everything has been paid up. It's basically saying the directors have paid for the shares in full. So we're going to say that it's £1 paid on each share, and the amount unpaid on each share is 0. Okay. And we don't need to put anything in here because there's been no non-cash consideration. So if we scroll to section 4, now section 4 just details how many shares are then currently held after issuing all of the shares, the new shares. So we're going to again put sterling in here as the currency. And then we're going to have ordinary again. And the number of new shares is now 100 because we've got the 1 plus the 99. And the aggregate nominal value, so that's the number of shares issued multiplied by each share's nominal value of £1. It's going to be 100 times a pound, which is £100, sorry. And then we've got the totals down here, so we just need to add those in. And we need to put in the total aggregate amount of unpaid, which is 0. And so that just shows the total shares after issuing the new shares. If you had different types of shares, you'd put these in the different categories here. But because this is a very simple example, then we're just going to leave it like this. You do need to, however, put the totals down the bottom as well. So 100, 100, and 0. Great, so that's section 4. If we scroll to section 5, here I've already pre-populated it because this is the kind of narrative that most people will need to put in here if you've just got normal shares and you're issuing the same kind of shares again. So you're going to have to put in ordinary here again. And then here, what we're going to say in the prescribed particulars is that you're giving these shares full rights to receive notice of, attend and vote at general meetings, and 1 share carries 1 vote. And we're also going to say that we've got full rights to dividends and full rights to capital distribution. So that's just outlining that the shares are the same as the previous shares. They're just normal, ordinary shares with no weird things going on. And then finally, you've got to sign the form on behalf of the company or submit it electronically via web filing. So that's section 6. And then here are the details of where to send it to if you are going to send it in manually. So that's the SHO1 form. I hope you found that helpful and useful. And if you do have any further questions, then please do get in contact with us at Millward May. Thank you.